I don't know. I feel like centrists are kind of just like useful tools to the right wing.
Yeah, I like that's usually been my takeaway is most people that claim to be centrists are just because they're too scared to actually say they're Republican.
Right.
But then I'm sure that's not true of everyone and everyone that claims to be centrist, just my personal experience.
Yep. Mine too. Oh, I don't really side with either. I'm not really right or left. It's like, yeah, you are. You're just afraid to say, or you just you don't want to commit to anything because they want to be able to like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't get people's politics. Just look at the ideas. Base your politics on the ideas and the policies and if you disagree with one thing that just happens to be generally on your side or whatever it is, then just talk about that and why you disagree. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater and
Hmm.
say, "Oh, well, now I'm right wing." It's kind of weird to me. It's like the whole um, the left does this, but what the left will do is they'll disagree with somebody on the left and they'll try to like ostracize them and they'll get more insular and they'll do this not virtue, yeah, virtue testing, like for purity testing. You know, are you
Yeah,
are you
I.
left enough or whatever? And some
Mhm.
people say, are you woke enough? Are you woker than that? Which is really a bad way to put that.
But
But
yeah, it is that idea that there's usually like a few issues that they're basically like, are you all in agreement with this one thing?
mhm.
And if you, for whatever reason, are not against it, then that's like you're out.
Right, which is dumb. And that's fine. And you know what? If you're on the left and you don't agree with something, just say, fine, I don't agree with it, but I agree with all the other stuff. What's really
Right.
dumb is the dumb response is the person that gets kicked out of the club because they don't, whatever, or the group because they don't agree with, they're not in agreement with it, is to suddenly like flip and say, well, now I'm on the right and now I don't believe in global climate change and now I don't believe in um, abortion rights and now I don't believe in Medicare for all. It's like, whoa, that's like to change your politics, do a complete 180 on everything just because you happen to disagree on this one little thing is really dumb. People that go over to the right, it's like, well, then you weren't really on board with a lot of the leftist ideas in the first place.
Yeah, it's like I guess to out to that analogy of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, it's like, well, now you filled the bathtub with boiling acid.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
what are you doing here?
Right.
Yeah, I think it would be nice for there to be more legitimate discourse. I
Yeah.
think that there could be some like after legitimate discourse occurs, there could be compromises that would be fair in the moment, and
Hmm.
progress could proceed forward in certain areas.
Right.
And I don't think that happens enough.
Right. And if you do disagree, I think that the left, both the left and the right, but I mean, I think the left does a really bad job of explaining why it disagrees.
Hmm.
Why do you have a problem with this other person's point of view? You're just criticizing and you're just calling the other person names. Not only is that silly and childish, it's just like you're not addressing the issue. Now you've moved off and you've branded this person whatever slur you want, and then it kind of gives you a get out of jail free card to then call them whatever you want. And that does push people over to the right because if you're not accepted, so you kind of have to be kind of a thick skin to deal with some of that, I think, if they're going
Yeah,
to
I mean,
push
and
back.
the right also, of course, does that too.
Oh, of
Like
course they do.
they'll just
Yeah.
go to name calling and all that kind of
Oh, of
stuff as
course.
well.
Absolutely. Of course they do. They just don't do it to their own
Yeah,
as
yeah,
much.
that is. I mean, with the exception of rhino as a term,
Right.
but
Yeah,
but
it's
outside of that, I
starting to
can't think of
happen.
much.
It's starting to happen now. We're seeing some of it now with the
Yeah,
the the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Dan Crenshaws and the infighting. I mean, we're definitely starting to see it, which is fine. Hey, that's great. I think that's fantastic. Keep fighting each other. I don't mind if the Republican Party crumbles under their own bullshit.
yeah, because that's a lot of like what was going on when they kept doing all those constant rounds of Speaker of the House voting.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah. Go
It
ahead.
was seeing
Hey,
that.
keep.
Yeah,
I mean, Dan Crenshaw, other AKA Solid Snake,
yeah,
is I mean, if he looks, if there's anybody that looks like a bad guy,
yeah. Which is funny because he's actually one of our guys
I know that.
here in Houston. Yeah. Um, I forget what it was, but there was actually something the other day that I saw he was a part of. like making an argument for, and I was like, oh, he's actually doing something good for a change. Nice. Don't remember what it is though, but I very clearly had that thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then he usually like will do something really bad immediately afterwards.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's the same thing when Trump was president. Like he had like a plethora of things, and then there was like the one bill where it was helping to make it so like there weren't surprise medical bills, and I was like, oh, one nice thing. Wow, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
We found it. So yeah, I feel like that's always going to be the case. You know, there's always going to be one thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I feel like Democrats are the exact opposite. It's like, oh, here's the one thing I don't like this Democrat did.
Right.
All right.
You know, the stimulus checks. Who was president when 2 of those stimulus checks went out?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. In fact, who wanted to delay them just so he could put his name on them?
Yeah. And who actually wanted to like kind of delay some of it to get infrastructure passed? And it was the Democrats, right? And they were forced into passing it. The second one, I believe.
Yeah. Funny how that works.
Yeah. And Joe Biden does one, which was already promised, by the way, from the Trump administration. And they just followed it through. And Joe Biden is the one, their administration, like, oh, well, we didn't actually mean 2,000. What we meant was like to combine it with the previous $600 check. We'll give you, you know, 1,200, and that'll be the same. That'll make up for it. And that'll be 2,000 equal or whatever it was. We'll give you 1,400 because so it equals 2,000 is what we meant. It's like, no, you said $2,000 checks, and that, you know, whatever.
Yeah, because I love that Sanders was called out on that, because pretty much I can't think of a single time where I've seen Sanders say something and I haven't just immediately agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time there is some kind of bull crap like that coming out of some politician's mouth, it seems like Sanders is always there to just be like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
So I've always loved that. Yeah. But yeah, no, that's also the other thing that was hugely controversial for Biden is, you know, the pulling out of Iran. It's like, well, he was just following through on what Trump was saying to do.
Oh,
I mean, sure, he could have not followed through, but
Iran or Afghanistan?
Oh, Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, it's like have like this idea of what every time we get a new president, just we need to just have like a 180 for every policy of our country.
Yeah, right. Well,
like that's we can't manage like that. You have to have some things continue, even if you don't agree with them.
Right. He did pull out of the Iran nuclear deal, Trump, which Biden said we'd get right back into, and we haven't yet. So,
well, I think that's on Iran's side of it, because I think we're having issues with communication and negotiating with them, because they're like, well, are you going to be back in it 4 years from now?
Right. Yeah, I know. Well, that's the problem.
You know.